Our modern world hums with the invisible gears of ancient ideas. Long before silicon chips and satellites, innovators in ancient China built machines that defied their time. We are about to explore 25 of their most puzzling inventions, from a device that detected earthquakes from hundreds of miles away to a mechanical compass that always pointed south. You will discover how a civilization without our technology achieved feats that still leave engineers in awe. How did they create a water-powered clock tower that mapped the stars? And what was the secret behind a flame-throwing weapon used in naval battles? This journey uncovers the brilliant minds who saw the future first. What do you believe is the greatest invention from the ancient world? That hum of ancient ideas becomes a tangible vibration with our first invention. In the year 132, a brilliant astronomer and engineer named Zhang Heng presented the Han Dynasty court with a device of pure genius, the world's first seismoscope. This was not some crude instrument, but a masterpiece of art and science. Cast in bronze, it stood as a large, ornate vessel, circled by 8 dragons, each facing a cardinal direction. Below each dragon sat a corresponding bronze frog, its mouth open wide in anticipation. The mechanism inside was a closely guarded secret, but historical texts suggest a central pendulum was sensitively balanced. When tremors from a distant earthquake traveled through the earth, the pendulum would swing, triggering a set of internal levers. This precise action would release a single bronze ball from the mouth of the dragon facing the quake's epicenter. The ball would clatter into the frog's mouth below, creating a loud sound that alerted officials not just that an earthquake had occurred, but from which direction. The accuracy was astounding. Court records tell of a time the dragon facing west released its ball, yet no tremors were felt in the capital. Days later, a messenger arrived from a province hundreds of miles to the west, reporting a major earthquake. The device had detected what human senses could not. To this day, scientists debate the exact arrangement of its internal levers. Some reconstructions work, but many believe Zhang Heng's original design was far more sensitive and sophisticated than anything we have managed to recreate. It was a machine that saw the unseen, a silent guardian listening to the whispers of the earth itself. That same mechanical genius that listened to the earth also found a way to master direction on the move. Centuries before the magnetic compass was common, ancient Chinese engineers built a chariot so clever it seemed to possess a mind of its own. This was the south-pointing chariot, a 2-wheeled vehicle topped with a small, wooden figure that always, miraculously, pointed south. No matter how many twists and turns the chariot made, the figure on top, often an ornate statuette of a sage or immortal, would rotate on its platform to maintain its unwavering southern bearing. The secret was not magic, but a breathtakingly complex system of differential gears hidden within the carriage. As the wheels turned, the gears would calculate the difference in their rotation, automatically compensating for every change in direction to keep the figure correctly aligned. This was pure mechanical computation, a physical algorithm crafted from wood and bronze. For an emperor navigating featureless plains or thick fog, this device was more than a navigational aid. It was a potent symbol of imperial power and cosmic order. In Chinese cosmology, the south was a revered direction, associated with the emperor and the height of power. A machine that constantly honored the south was a powerful statement of divine right and technological supremacy. The true mystery lies in how these artisans, without any formal understanding of magnetic fields or modern engineering principles, first conceived of and then manufactured such precise gearing. The tolerances had to be perfect, the gear teeth carved with incredible accuracy to ensure the mechanism never slipped or jammed. It stands as a testament to a level of mechanical intuition that would not be seen again in the West for over 1,000 years. This was not just a tool for finding a direction, it was a physical manifestation of human intellect, a mechanical brain that could solve a complex problem in real time. That mechanical brain on wheels was not alone in its genius. In the 11th century, another monumental creation rose into the sky, a tower of whirling gears and celestial wonders that redefined the very meaning of timekeeping. This was Su Song's astronomical clock tower. a structure over 30 feet tall that was powered not by electricity or steam, but by the relentless, patient flow of water. Imagine a multi-story pagoda, its interior a labyrinth of wooden gears and bronze mechanisms, all set in motion by a massive water wheel. This was not merely a clock, it was a cosmic engine. At its heart was an intricate escapement mechanism, a device that regulated the power from the water wheel, releasing it in precise, measured ticks. This prevented the mechanism from spinning wildly and allowed the entire machine to operate with a steady, rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat for the tower. At the top, an armillary sphere, a skeletal model of the heavens crafted from interlocking rings, rotated in perfect sync with the actual stars and planets. It showed the movement of celestial bodies with an accuracy that was staggering for its era. But the tower was also a spectacle for the senses. On each hour, a series of automata, mechanical figurines, would spring to life. Some would emerge from hidden doors to ring bells, while others struck gongs, audibly announcing the passage of time to all who were nearby. This was a public marvel, a symbol of imperial power and cosmic harmony. The greatest puzzle surrounding this tower is not how it was built, but why it vanished. After the fall of the dynasty that commissioned it, the tower was dismantled, and its secrets were seemingly lost to war and time. No physical remnants survive today. Our entire understanding comes from Su Song's own incredibly detailed written descriptions and mechanical diagrams. Modern engineers who have studied these texts are left in awe, forced to reconstruct its brilliance from paper alone. It stands as a ghost in the historical record, a testament to a sophistication that was achieved, celebrated, and then tragically forgotten, leaving us to wonder what other wonders were lost in the shadows of the past. While the clock tower celebrated the cosmos, another invention harnessed a far more destructive power from the Earth. Deep within the arsenals of the Tang and Song dynasties, engineers perfected a weapon of pure terror, the fierce fire oil cabinet. This was not a simple torch or a pot of burning pitch, it was the world's first true flamethrower. Its core was a double piston pump, a brilliant piece of engineering made from bronze. An operator would work two pump rods back and forth, forcing a highly flammable liquid mixture, likely a form of primitive petroleum or a concoction similar to the legendary Greek fire, through a hose or a metal tube. At the nozzle, a slow-burning fuse or a pilot light would ignite the stream as it shot forth, creating a continuous, roaring jet of fire that could reach astonishing distances. On the decks of naval vessels, this device was utterly devastating. Imagine the sheer horror of watching an enemy ship approach, not with archers, but with a team of soldiers who could project a river of flame across the water. The fire would cling to wooden hulls and sails, creating an inferno that was nearly impossible to extinguish with water, often only worsening the blaze. The psychological impact was as potent as the physical destruction, breaking enemy formations and morale before a single boarding action could even begin. The enduring mystery, however, lies in the fuel itself. Historical texts guard the exact recipe for this fierce fire oil with cryptic language. Scholars believe it was a volatile cocktail of petroleum, sulfur, and various salts that allowed it to burn on water and stick to surfaces. The engineering challenge was just as immense, creating a pressurized system that could sustain a steady stream without exploding in the operator's hands. To achieve this, centuries before similar pressurized weapons emerged in the West reveals a chilling mastery over both chemistry and mechanics, a dark but undeniable facet of ancient innovation that turned the very elements into weapons of war. From the terror of naval fire came an invention that conquered the earth itself with the power of the wind. Vast fleets did not always need an ocean, for ancient Chinese engineers built ships that sailed across the plains. These were the legendary wooden oxen and gliding horses, colossal wheeled vehicles that moved with the silent force of the breeze. Picture a massive, wheeled platform the size of a small building, carrying hundreds of soldiers and their supplies, all propelled not by horses or oxen, but by a single, enormous sail mounted on a sturdy mast. This was a land-sailing warship, a logistical marvel that could traverse great distances at speeds that outpaced any marching army. The genius lay in its elegant simplicity, harnessing the ceaseless energy of the wind, a free and abundant resource, to solve the immense problem of moving an army across the flat, open expanses of northern China. The engineering challenges, however, were immense. How do you design a stable chassis for such a heavy, wind-catching structure on unpredictable terrain? The frame had to be incredibly robust to withstand the stresses of movement over rough ground, while the steering mechanism needed to be both powerful and precise to control the vehicle's immense momentum. A sudden gust on a poorly designed chassis could easily topple the entire structure, turning a strategic asset into a pile of splintered wood. This leads us to the great puzzle of why this brilliant technology never became the standard. The land sailor was a specialist tool, masterful in the right conditions but utterly dependent on wide, flat landscapes and consistent winds. In hilly or forested regions, it was useless. Maintaining and repairing such large, complex wooden machines in the field would have been a constant burden for any army on the move. Perhaps the greatest reason for its limited use was its sheer, intimidating scale. Building a fleet of these vessels required an enormous investment in timber, craftsmanship, and time, a cost that only the most powerful and ambitious dynasties could afford. It remains a breathtaking idea, a glimpse of an alternate history where armies moved with the quiet efficiency of the wind itself, a dream of land-bound navies that sailed into legend. Far from the roaring winds of land ships, a quieter form of magic was being conducted in the courts of divination. A simple spoon carved from a single piece of lodestone, a naturally magnetic mineral, would be carefully placed upon a highly polished bronze plate known as a diviner's board. This was not a kitchen utensil, but one of humanity's earliest and most elegant encounters with the invisible force of magnetism. When given a gentle spin, the spoon would not simply come to a random stop. Instead, its handle would consistently swing around to point toward the south, while its bowl, acting as a counterweight, would point north. This was the mysterious South Governor, a device that seemed to possess a will of its own, aligning with the cosmic order. Its primary purpose, however, was not for finding a physical path. For centuries, this mystical spoon was a vital tool for divination and the practice of feng shui. Masters of geomancy would use it to orient buildings, tombs, and entire cities in perfect harmony with the unseen currents of the earth and the heavens. A home or a grave aligned correctly was believed to channel good fortune, health, and prosperity, while a misaligned one could invite disaster. The spoon was a bridge between the earthly and the spiritual, a way to read the hidden wishes of the universe itself. The great mystery is how ancient diviners first discovered the properties of the lodestone. How did they realize that this peculiar, heavy rock, which could strangely attract iron, also had a constant, unwavering relationship with the poles of the earth itself? It was likely a slow accumulation of observation, where a piece of lodestone left on a smooth surface was seen to always settle in the same orientation. The leap from that simple observation to carving it into a spoon and placing it on a ritual plate shows a profound desire to give physical form to cosmic forces. The transformation from this spiritual compass to a navigational one was a revolution centuries in the making. It required a shift in thinking, from seeking alignment with heavenly energy to finding direction on the open seas. The diviner's polished bronze plate eventually evolved into the mariner's compass bowl, and the mystical lodestone spoon was miniaturized into a magnetized steel needle. A tool created to harmonize with the spirit of the world ultimately unlocked its oceans, guiding explorers to new continents and forever changing the map of human history. That same intuitive grasp of natural forces led to a venture deep underground, where a quest for a simple seasoning uncovered a fire that burned without wood. In the salt marshes of the Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years ago, miners performed a feat of engineering that would not be matched for centuries. They drilled for brine, the salty water essential for producing salt, but they dug so deep they pierced the earth's hidden breath. Using towering derricks constructed from bamboo and a heavy iron drill bit attached to a long rope, teams of workers would repeatedly lift and drop the bit, pulverizing the rock below in a process known as percussion drilling. The scale was staggering, with some boreholes reaching depths of over 3,000 feet. a vertical tunnel so deep it could have swallowed the Eiffel Tower with room to spare. The real discovery came when their drill broke into a subterranean pocket of natural gas. This invisible, odorless vapor would rush up the borehole, a mysterious and terrifying force. Yet these ancient engineers did not flee from this dangerous surprise. They mastered it. They fashioned pipelines from hollowed-out bamboo trunks, sealed with clay and lacquer, to capture the escaping gas and channel it safely away. The gas was then piped directly to large, shallow iron pans holding the brine. They would ignite the gas at the end of the bamboo pipe, creating a steady, controllable flame that boiled the water away, leaving behind precious, white salt crystals. This was an industrial revolution powered by fossil fuel, happening while the Roman Empire was still in its ascendancy. The safety measures they developed reveal a profound understanding of the risks. They built structures to divert the gas away from the drilling platforms, and they learned to recognize the signs of a dangerous buildup. The greatest puzzle is how they managed the immense technical challenges of drilling to such depths without steel cables or modern derricks. The bamboo derricks had to be incredibly resilient to withstand the constant stress, and the drillers had to invent methods for removing debris and for straightening a borehole that had gone off course, all by feel and experience. They were not merely digging holes, they were pioneering the very art of deep earth extraction, tapping into a raw power hidden for eons and turning it into the most fundamental of commodities. That mastery of hidden power, from the Earth's fire to the magnetic pull of the poles, found its most whimsical expression in the royal courts. Here, engineers became puppet masters, creating mechanical theaters that blurred the line between art and life. The legendary craftsman Yan Shi is said to have presented the king with a life-sized, humanoid automaton, a robotic figure that could walk in perfect time, sing beautiful songs, and even flirtatiously wink at the ladies in the court. This was not a simple statue, but an artificial person powered by a labyrinth of internal mechanisms. These ancient robots were marvels of microengineering, driven by complex systems of silk strings, precisely carved wooden gears, and even water-driven hydraulics that gave them fluid, lifelike motion. A single figure might contain dozens of interlocking parts, all working in harmony to mimic the subtle gestures of a living being. Imagine an entire scene unfolding on a miniature stage, with multiple automata moving in a synchronized performance, a mechanical ballet orchestrated by hidden hands turning cranks and releasing catches. The purpose was pure spectacle, a demonstration of a ruler's ability to command not just people, but the very laws of motion and creation. It was technological theater designed to awe and entertain, proving that human ingenuity could breathe a semblance of life into wood and bronze. This leads us to a profound historical mystery. Why are detailed, technical records of these mechanical theaters so incredibly scarce? While texts praise the wonders they performed, the actual blueprints for their construction are almost entirely lost. The knowledge was likely a closely guarded secret, passed down orally from master to apprentice within small, elite guilds of craftsmen. When a dynasty fell or a patron died, that fragile chain of knowledge could be broken forever. The secrets of gears and strings, so painstakingly developed, would simply vanish. We are left with tantalizing descriptions of dancing figures and winking courtiers, forcing us to wonder just how sophisticated these lost performances truly were. Were they simple puppets on a grand scale, or did they possess a level of mechanical complexity that would still impress us today? The silence of history only deepens the wonder. The whimsical dance of court automata reveals a deep fascination with motion, a fascination that soon took to the skies with a simple stick and a spinning blade. Known as the bamboo copter, this ancient toy was a marvel of intuitive physics. A small propeller, cleverly crafted from bamboo or wood, was mounted on a central stick. A child would place the stick between their palms and, with a rapid rubbing motion, spin the propeller before releasing it skyward. The whirling blades would bite into the air, generating enough lift to send the toy buzzing upward like a giant insect before gently fluttering back to Earth. The principle at work was the same one that allows modern helicopters to fly, aerodynamics in its purest form. The angled blades of the propeller acted as rotating wings, slicing through the air and creating a difference in pressure that pushed the entire device upward. This was a working demonstration of principles that would not be formally defined by scientists for over 1,000 years. Yet this simple device presents a profound historical puzzle. Was the bamboo copter ever more than just a child's plaything? Could its mesmerizing flight have been a primitive, yet serious, investigation into the possibility of human flight? Some scholars suggest that Taoist adepts, always seeking to emulate the flight of immortals, may have studied its mechanics with a philosophical eye, seeing in its ascent a model for transcending the earthly realm. The most tantalizing possibility, however, lies in its potential influence on later pioneers of aviation. While no direct line of transmission has been proven, trade routes along the Silk Road could have carried this ingenious toy westward. It is not difficult to imagine an early European inventor watching a bamboo copter spin into the air and experiencing a sudden, world-altering spark of inspiration. The toy itself contained no secret blueprints for a flying machine, but it did possess something perhaps more valuable, a tangible proof that sustained vertical flight was not a fantasy, but a physical reality waiting to be mastered. This humble plaything represents one of humanity's oldest dreams made manifest, a whirling seed of an idea that would one day grow into a global revolution. The same mechanical genius that guided chariots south also found a way to count every step of their journey. Zhang Heng, the mastermind behind the earthquake detector, also perfected an odometer, a cart-mounted device that transformed travel into a precise mathematical equation. This was not a simple wheel counter, but a complex machine of interlocking gears housed within a decorated carriage. As the cart's wheels turned, they engaged a series of precisely calculated gear ratios, transferring the rotation into the heart of the device. For every Chinese li traveled, a distance of roughly 1/3 of a mile, the mechanism would complete a full cycle. This action would release a wooden ball from an internal chamber. The ball would drop, carried by its own weight down a chute, before landing with a sharp, resonant clang into the waiting hands of a mechanical wooden figure. The automaton, in its final, decisive movement, would then strike a drum, announcing the completed distance to everyone within earshot. The rhythmic beat of the drum turned the monotony of a long journey into a measured, audible progression across the land. The true puzzle of this invention lies in its calibration. How could such a device be made so accurate without standardized manufacturing or precise measuring tools? The engineers had to account for the subtle variations in wheel diameter caused by uneven roads or wear, and their gear ratios had to be calculated with incredible foresight. They achieved this not with written formulas, but with a deep, intuitive understanding of mechanical transmission, knowing exactly how many turns of a specific sized wheel would equal one single lie. This was mathematics made physical, a thinking machine of wood and bronze that could measure the vast, open landscape with nothing more than the steady turning of its own wheels. It represents a worldview where even distance was not a mystery, but a quantity to be captured, counted, and announced to the world with the beat of a drum. The steady rhythm of the odometer's drum measured a land rich with hidden treasures, and perhaps none was more sought after than the very substance of its cups and vases. True porcelain emerged from Chinese kilns as a material that seemed to defy the nature of clay itself. Unlike the heavier, opaque earthenware found across the world, this was a substance of ethereal beauty, so thin it was semi-transparent when held to the light, and so hard it would ring with a clear, musical note when gently tapped. This was not an accident of firing, but the result of a precisely guarded alchemy. The secret lay in a specific marriage of two local materials, a pure white clay known as kaolin and a feldspathic rock called petunsi. Kaolin gave the mixture its plasticity and whiteness, while the petunsi, which vitrified at extreme temperatures, fused into a glassy matrix that made the final product impervious to water and incredibly strong. Creating this reaction required a controlled inferno. Kilns were built like multi-chambered dragons, climbing the sides of hills with fires burning for days at temperatures exceeding 1,300 degrees Celsius. Potters had to master this searing heat, as a single miscalculation could warp an entire batch of wares into useless, melted slag. For centuries, this complex recipe was a state secret, protected as fiercely as any military technology. The resulting porcelain, this white gold, became a global obsession. When examples first reached Europe via the Silk Road, they were valued above precious metals. European alchemists and potters were utterly baffled. They could produce fine pottery, but nothing that matched the strength, whiteness, and translucency of Chinese porcelain. For hundreds of years, they experimented with countless mixtures of clay, glass, and even ground-up shells, creating soft-paste porcelain that was a pale, often flawed, imitation. The puzzle was so profound it fueled industrial espionage on a grand scale. Agents were sent to infiltrate Chinese kilns, and royalty funded desperate experiments, all seeking to crack the code. This monopoly did more than just create beautiful objects. It shaped the very flow of global wealth and power for generations, turning dining tables into a silent battleground for one of history's most elegant and enduring technological secrets. The same ingenuity that measured miles and fired porcelain also mastered the lifeblood of agriculture, water. Across the vast fields and deep mines of ancient China, a simple yet brilliant machine ensured that water flowed exactly where it was needed. The square pallet chain pump was a triumph of practical engineering, a device so effective it would remain in continuous use for more than 2,000 years. Picture an endless loop, a long chain made of individual wooden squares, each one acting as a small bucket. This chain was threaded over a large, horizontal drive wheel at the top, and a smaller guide wheel submerged in a water source below. As the top wheel turned, it dragged the entire chain in a continuous circuit. Each square pallet would scoop up water from the lower pool, carry it securely upward within a wooden trough or pipe, and then tip its load out at the top before descending empty to begin the cycle again. This created a steady, reliable stream of water that could be lifted from a river or a mine shaft to irrigate a high field or keep a worksite dry. Often, the power to turn the massive top wheel came not from a single person, but from the coordinated effort of several workers walking on a large treadmill, a human-powered engine that could move immense volumes of water with relentless efficiency. The profound puzzle here is not how it worked, but why it was never truly replaced. While other civilizations developed similar water-lifting devices, none achieved the same enduring, universal adoption. Its design was perfectly balanced, a harmony of minimal moving parts and maximum output. It used easily replaceable wooden components, required no deep technical knowledge to operate or repair, and could be scaled up or down for any task, from a small family farm to a massive state-run mining operation. This was a technology that perfectly understood its environment and its purpose. It did not seek to be revolutionary, only to be relentlessly useful, a quality that allowed it to outlive empires and dynasties, quietly watering the fields that fed a civilization long after more complex machines had been forgotten. Yet for all its strength and permanence, another invention captured the world in a far more delicate form. The birth of paper, created from the humble fibers of mulberry bark, old rags, and hemp, was a revolution in itself, but its earliest uses reveal a versatility that is truly staggering. We think of paper for writing and art, yet in ancient China, it became everything from armor to clothing. Imagine a soldier not in steel, but in layers of thick, folded paper, treated with lacquer to become surprisingly resilient against arrows and blades. This paper armor was not only effective, but also lightweight and cheap to produce, allowing armies to equip vast numbers of troops. The same material provided comfort in more peaceful settings, fashioned into warm robes and blankets, a testament to its unexpected insulating properties. In homes, oiled paper provided a translucent barrier for windows, letting in a soft, diffused light long before the widespread use of glass. And in a moment of everyday luxury, the Chinese court of the 6th century began using soft, perfumed paper for the most private of purposes, a convenience that would not become common in the West for over 1,000 years. This leads to one of the great puzzles of technological history. Why did a material with such obvious and diverse benefits take centuries to travel beyond China's borders? The answer lies in a complex web of secrecy and value. Papermaking was a state-controlled secret, a technology guarded as fiercely as any military asset. The knowledge was considered so valuable that the Chinese Empire was reluctant to let it slip into the hands of potential rivals. Furthermore, For cultures that wrote on parchment or papyrus, the thin, fragile sheets of paper might have seemed insubstantial, even inferior, at first glance. It took the capture of Chinese papermakers by Arab forces after a pivotal battle in the 8th century for the knowledge to finally begin its slow journey across the globe. Before that, paper was a silent, domestic revolution, shaping a civilization from its battlefields to its bathrooms, a hidden layer of innovation that touched every aspect of life. The delicate strength of paper had its match in another material, one spun not from plants but from the very dreams of a creature. For millennia, the secret of silk was a treasure more closely guarded than any gold-filled vault. It began with a humble insect, the Bomix mori silkworm, a creature so thoroughly domesticated it can no longer survive in the wild. The process was a sacred ritual, starting with the careful cultivation of mulberry trees, the only food the silkworms would accept. Farmers would then nurture the tiny eggs in special rooms, controlling the temperature with exquisite care until they hatched into voracious caterpillars. For weeks, these worms would do nothing but eat mulberry leaves, growing exponentially until they were ready to spin. Their transformation inside the cocoon was the true miracle, as they secreted a single, continuous filament of raw silk from 2 glands, wrapping themselves in a shimmering case that could be over half a mile long. The challenge was how to harvest this fragile, continuous thread without breaking it. The solution was the silk reeling machine, a device of elegant complexity. The cocoons were first softened in basins of hot water, loosening the sticky sericin protein that held the filament together. A skilled operator would then gather the loose ends from several cocoons, passing them through a delicate porcelain eyelet that combined the fine threads into a single, stronger strand. This strand was then wound onto a large horizontal reel, which was itself turned by a foot treadle or a simple crank and flywheel mechanism. This machine allowed for a constant, smooth tension, preventing the priceless filament from snapping and enabling the production of a uniform, high-quality yarn. This entire intricate process, from mulberry leaf to finished reel, was a state secret of monumental importance. The economic and political puzzle of China's silk monopoly is one of history's greatest. How did they maintain such absolute control for thousands of years? The answer was a policy of draconian secrecy. Anyone caught attempting to smuggle silkworm eggs or the seeds of the mulberry tree out of the country faced execution. This monopoly made silk a currency of kings and a driver of global trade. On the Silk Road, a bolt of silk was worth more than its weight in gold in the markets of Rome, where the Romans, baffled by its origin, believed it grew on trees. This control was not just about wealth, it was about power. Silk was diplomatic leverage, gifted to tributary states to secure alliances and all rivals. It clothed emperors and priests, becoming a symbol of divine grace and imperial authority. The secret was so potent that when it finally did escape, it was through a tale of espionage and romance, with a Chinese princess allegedly smuggling silkworm eggs in her elaborate headdress to her new husband in a foreign land. The monopoly was eventually broken, but the legacy of this ancient invention, born from a worm and perfected by a machine, had already woven itself into the very fabric of human history. While silk threads connected empires on Earth, ancient astronomers were mapping the very fabric of the sky itself. Their tools were not just instruments, but entire cosmologies cast in bronze and painted on silk, revealing a celestial order invisible to the untrained eye. Among the most breathtaking were the celestial globes, vast spherical maps of the heavens. Picture a bronze sphere, its surface intricately etched with the precise positions of thousands of stars, the band of the Milky Way, and the winding paths of the planets. This was not a static sculpture, but a dynamic model. The globe was often suspended within a series of concentric rings representing the horizon and the meridian, allowing a scholar to rotate it and simulate the nightly dance of the constellations for any given date or hour. The craftsmanship was staggering, each star precisely punched into the metal to denote its brightness, creating a three-dimensional star chart of unparalleled accuracy. This deep understanding presents a profound historical puzzle. How did astronomers like Yi Xing in the 8th century calculate the slow, creeping precession of the equinoxes? This is a phenomenon where the Earth's wobbling axis gradually shifts the position of the stars over a cycle of 26,000 years. They detected this glacial drift by meticulously comparing their own observations against star maps that were already centuries old, noticing minute shifts in the position of the solstices against the fixed backdrop of stars. Without telescopes, their only tool was patient, generational record-keeping. This dedication also allowed them to document guest stars, what we now know were supernovae. In the year 1054, they recorded a new star in the constellation Taurus, so brilliant it was visible in daylight for 23 days. This was the Crab Nebula being born, and their detailed notes provide crucial data for modern astronomers to this day. The celestial globe was more than a map, it was a working model of the universe, a physical manifestation of a belief that the heavens were knowable, predictable, and could be held in the palm of your hand. This leap from celestial observation to military engineering reveals a society that could standardize death as precisely as it mapped the stars. The crossbow was not merely a new weapon, it was a revolution in physics and factory production. A soldier could now wield a device that stored immense energy in its prod, a bow-like arm made of wood, bone, or composite materials, and release it with the simple pull of a trigger. This meant a common conscript, with minimal training, could launch a bolt with enough force to pierce the armor of a noble knight who had spent a lifetime mastering the sword and lance. The true genius, however, was hidden inside the stock, within a compact, sealed bronze casting known as the lock. This mechanism was a masterpiece of minimalism. It consisted of only three main parts: a tumbler that held the drawn string, a sear that locked the tumbler in place, and a trigger lever. When the lever was pressed, it would precisely disengage the sear, allowing the tumbler to spin forward and release the string with devastating efficiency. This bronze heart was so perfectly designed that it remained virtually unchanged for centuries. But the real puzzle lies not in its design, but in its production. These triggers were not handcrafted one by individual artisans. They were mass-produced with fully interchangeable parts. A broken trigger from one crossbow could be instantly replaced with a new one from a central armory, without any need for filing or custom fitting. This interchangeability required a level of standardization that is staggering for its time. Every single bronze casting had to be identical. The placement of the pivot holes, the geometry of the teeth on the sear and tumbler, every dimension had to be precise to within a fraction of a millimeter. How did ancient foundries achieve this? The secret was a system of precision molds and rigorous quality control. Master patterns were created, likely from a durable material like lacquered wood or bronze, and these were used to create ceramic molds for casting. Each mold could be used to produce dozens of identical bronze triggers before wearing out. After casting, the parts were likely checked against a standard gauge, a sort of ancient go-no-go gauge, to ensure they met specification. This was an assembly line process conceived 2,000 years before Henry Ford, a systematic approach to manufacturing that turned soldiers into a standardized, repairable system. The military advantage was overwhelming. An army equipped with these weapons could maintain its fighting strength in the field indefinitely, with a logistics train that carried not whole crossbows, but boxes of identical, easily replaced parts. This was not just a new way to fight, it was a new way to think about production itself, a puzzle of precision and scale whose solution would not be rediscovered in the West until the Industrial Age. The same alchemists who sought to measure the heavens also experimented with earthly minerals, and in their quiet quest for immortality, they stumbled upon a formula for controlled chaos. Taoist adepts, tirelessly mixing sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal in their laboratories, were not trying to create a weapon. Their goal was a potion for eternal life, a spiritual elixir to transcend the mortal body. Instead, their crucibles yielded a startling black powder that flashed and roared with a power unlike anything they had seen. This accidental discovery, known as Hua Yao or fire drug, was first harnessed not for war, but for wonder. Early pyrotechnicians packed the mixture into bamboo tubes, creating the world's first firecrackers. The loud bangs and fiery sparks were believed to frighten away malevolent spirits, making these devices essential for religious ceremonies and grand festivals intended to purify and protect entire communities. Soon, the craft evolved into breathtaking aerial displays, with rockets streaking into the night sky to burst into showers of colored fire, a celebration of light conquering darkness for the delight of emperors and commoners alike. This presents a profound philosophical puzzle. How could a discovery born from the most peaceful and life-affirming of pursuits, the search for immortality, become one of history's most potent forces of destruction? The very ingredients held symbolic meaning for the alchemists, representing fundamental elements of the cosmos. Yet when combined, they created a reaction that was purely physical, a violent release of gas and heat that obeyed its own ruthless logic, indifferent to the spiritual intentions of its creators. The chemical reaction itself was a paradox, a tightly packed solid transforming instantly into a rapidly expanding volume of hot gas, a physical metaphor for how creation and destruction can spring from the very same source. This duality would forever change the human experience. The same powder that painted the sky with joyous color on a festival night would soon propel stone-shattering cannonballs and fill the air with acrid smoke on the battlefield. It redefined the scale of both celebration and conflict, turning personal rituals into public spectacles and intimate combat into industrialized warfare. The search for eternal life had, ironically, yielded a substance that could end countless lives in an instant, a permanent and puzzling legacy written in both fire and blood. That same black powder that lit the sky was soon joined by another invention that turned the air itself into a tool of war. The kite, a simple structure of silk and bamboo, became a silent, soaring scout for ancient armies. These were not the playful toys of a gentle breeze, but massive, engineered platforms built for a single, daring purpose: to lift a soldier high above the battlefield. Constructed from sturdy bamboo frames and stretched with tough, resilient silk, these kites were colossal, capable of bearing the full weight of a grown man. A single soldier, harnessed securely to the frame, would be carried aloft by a powerful, steady wind, becoming the army's living, breathing eye in the sky. From this unprecedented vantage point, he could peer down upon enemy fortifications, map troop movements invisible from the ground, and gauge the lay of the land for miles around. The intelligence he gathered in a single flight could decide the outcome of an entire campaign. Yet this technological advantage demanded a terrifying price in courage. To be one of those first human flyers was to place your absolute trust in the craftsmanship of the kite and the whim of the wind. There were no parachutes, no safety lines, just a creaking frame of bamboo and the taut silk above you. A sudden gust could tear the kite apart. A lull in the wind could send you plummeting to the earth. What kind of resolve did it take to be the first person to ever step off a cliff for a military advantage? The tactical puzzle here is as compelling as the personal one. How did commanders develop the protocols for such a revolutionary form of reconnaissance? They had to master the art of launching and retrieving these human cargoes, interpreting the signals the observer would send back to the ground, often through a series of flag movements or by dropping weighted messages. This simple, wind-powered technology provided a real-time, bird's-eye view of the battlefield centuries before the first hot air balloon or reconnaissance plane, proving that the path to aerial dominance began not with an engine, but with a string and a courageous leap of faith. That same courage that sent men into the sky on kites was matched by a quieter form of bravery, the daily struggle to feed a civilization. From the soaring heights of reconnaissance, we descend to the very soil that sustained empires, where another puzzle of ancient engineering took root. The multi-tube seed drill was a machine of profound elegance, a wooden implement drawn by oxen that transformed the wasteful art of scattering seeds into a precise science of placement. Before its invention, farmers would broadcast seeds by hand across a field, a method that was as random as it was inefficient. Precious seeds lay exposed on the surface, eaten by birds or washed away by rain, while those that did sprout fought for sunlight and nutrients in a tangled, suffocating crowd. The seed drill solved this with breathtaking efficiency. Its central component was a hopper filled with seed, suspended over a series of narrow, vertical tubes. As the oxen pulled the drill forward, a small, grooved wheel at the base of the hopper would turn, measuring out individual seeds and dropping them at a consistent rate down each tube. These tubes, acting like mechanical roots, deposited the seeds into narrow furrows that had been simultaneously opened by a plowshare at the front of the device. A final chain of small weights would then drag soil back over the furrows, covering the seeds to a uniform depth. The result was a perfect grid of life, each seed given its own private space to thrive, protected from the elements and free from competition. This was agricultural engineering at its most impactful, a single device that conserved a staggering amount of seed while guaranteeing a robust and predictable harvest. The puzzle that has confounded historians for centuries is why this brilliant machine, which seems so obviously beneficial, remained almost entirely confined to China for so long. The answer lies in a complex web of economics, geography, and social structure. In many parts of the world, land was plentiful but labor was scarce, making the intensive, careful preparation required for drill seeding less appealing than simpler, if more wasteful, methods. The seed drill itself was a significant capital investment, requiring specialized carpentry and a team of oxen, putting it out of reach for the average peasant farmer in other societies. Furthermore, the specific crops that dominated Chinese agriculture, like millet and wheat, were perfectly suited to this orderly planting, whereas other staple crops in different regions may not have been. It was a technology perfectly calibrated for the specific needs of a dense, centralized, and administratively sophisticated state, a solution to a problem that other parts of the ancient world had not yet learned to see. This sophisticated seeder stands as a testament to a society that looked at a field and saw not just dirt, but a geometric equation for survival, a puzzle of potential that they alone had learned to solve. The geometric precision of the seed drill gave life to crops, but another art form perfected the preservation of beauty itself. Deep in specialized workshops, artisans mastered a medium both toxic and transformative, the sap of the lacquer tree. This raw material was a paradox, a natural resin that could produce objects of breathtaking durability and elegance, yet was so caustic it could inflict crippling rashes on the uninitiated. The process began with the dangerous harvest, tapping the trees to collect the grayish, viscous sap. This liquid was then meticulously filtered and purified, ready for its journey onto a core material, usually wood or fabric. The application was a ritual of patience. An object would receive not one or two, but dozens of impossibly thin coats, each one needing to dry and hardish in a humid, dust-free chamber before the next could be applied. A single chest could take months to complete, with each layer sanded to a flawless smoothness. The true magic, however, was chemical. The sap's power comes from a molecule called urushiol, the same compound that makes poison ivy so potent. When exposed to the moisture in the air, urushiol undergoes a complex polymerization, cross-linking to form an incredibly tough, plastic-like surface. This finished lacquer is impervious to water, resistant to acids and heat, and possesses a deep, luminous glow that seems to come from within the object itself. This leads to the great mystery of the workshops. How did these artisans handle such a toxic substance day after day without being incapacitated? The secret was a brutal and carefully managed process of desensitization. New apprentices were said to be intentionally exposed to small amounts of the sap, often by having it rubbed on their sensitive inner arms. They would suffer through the initial, agonizing allergic reactions, a rite of passage that often included swelling, blisters, and fever. Through repeated, controlled exposure, their bodies would gradually build a tolerance, a form of acquired immunity that allowed them to work with the material safely. This knowledge was a guarded secret of the craft, passed down through generations within closed guilds. The master artisans became living alchemists, their own bodies conditioned to withstand a poison in order to create objects of eternal beauty, leaving behind a legacy that remains vibrant and intact thousands of years later. A hidden river of smoke could flow endlessly from a bronze mountain. These were the Xinlu, or incense burners, crafted not just to hold fragrant pellets, but to transform their smoke into a mystical, ever-flowing stream. The most ingenious of these devices contained a complex internal labyrinth of hidden chambers and partitioned reservoirs. As the incense smoldered, hot air and smoke would rise into this sealed maze, where they would cool and condense. The resulting pressure difference, a delicate dance of fluid dynamics, would then draw the vapor through a series of narrow channels and out through tiny, almost invisible perforations carved into the ornate exterior. The smoke would not simply plume upward, but cascade down the sides of the burner like a gentle waterfall, or cling to the sculpted forms of mythical beasts as a low-lying mist. This was physics disguised as magic, a silent performance of air pressure and condensation that turned a scientific principle into a living sculpture. The profound puzzle of these burners is their seamless duality. They were at once a scientific demonstration and a deeply spiritual object. In the context of religious ceremonies, the continuous, flowing smoke represented the eternal presence of the ancestors or the divine, a bridge between the earthly and the heavenly realms. For personal meditation and aromatherapy, the calming, visual spectacle of the creeping mist was designed to focus the mind and soothe the spirit. How did the artisans who crafted these objects view their own work? Did they see themselves as engineers mastering the behavior of gases, or as mystics giving form to the breath of the gods? The answer is likely that they saw no distinction at all. The Xinlu stands as a perfect symbol of an age where the pursuit of scientific understanding and the expression of spiritual wonder were woven from the same scented thread. A reminder that the most profound discoveries often arise not from a desire to conquer nature, but to beautifully collaborate with its unseen forces. While incense smoke flowed like mystical rivers, another kind of current was being mastered: the immense flow of forces across deep river gorges. Ancient Chinese engineers did not simply build bridges, they spun webs of iron across seemingly impassable chasms, creating suspension bridges of a scale that defied belief. These were not simple rope and plank crossings, but structures supported by colossal chains, each link forged from iron of astonishing purity and strength. The casting process itself was a monumental feat. Artisans would smelt the iron in massive, furnace-like pits, then pour the molten metal into elaborately crafted sand molds to form individual links that could weigh hundreds of pounds. These links were not merely cast and connected. They were engineered with interlocking geometries, often shaped like a figure eight or with cleverly designed clevis and pin joints that distributed stress evenly, preventing a catastrophic concentration of force at any single point. The completed chains, each one a masterpiece of metallurgy, were then hauled into place by teams of workers using complex pulley systems, stretching from massive stone anchorages on either side of the river. The deck of the bridge was suspended from these iron rivers, creating a structure that was paradoxically both rigid and flexible. When loads crossed the bridge, the entire system would shift slightly, with the chains tightening and the towers bearing the downward thrust, a dynamic dance of tension and compression that modern engineers call a catenary curve. This inherent flexibility was the secret to their legendary resilience. How could a bridge made of metal, a material we associate with rigidity, withstand centuries of monsoon rains, violent earthquakes, and constant traffic? The answer lies in its ability to move. Unlike a stiff stone arch that would crack under seismic shock, the suspension bridge would sway and shudder, dissipating the energy of an earthquake along the entire length of its chains. The weight of a crossing caravan was not borne by a single beam, but shared by thousands of iron links working in perfect, distributed harmony. This reveals a puzzle of intuitive physics that still captivates structural engineers today. These builders, without formal mathematics or computer modeling, possessed a deep, almost instinctual understanding of how materials behave under stress. They knew that to resist a force, you must sometimes yield to it, creating a structure that was not a monolithic barrier, but a living, breathing entity in conversation with the landscape. This mastery of material and form allowed them to conquer spaces that nature had carved as divides, weaving iron threads that bound their empire together. That mastery of material and form, from iron bridges to lacquered wood, found its ultimate expression in the manipulation of numbers. Amid the bustling markets and quiet observatories, the most powerful computer was not made of metal, but of wood and beads. The Suanpan, or Chinese abacus, transformed arithmetic from a slow, error-prone process of brush and ink into a fluid, physical dance of the fingers. Its design was a masterpiece of numerical logic, a biquinary decimal system made tangible. A typical abacus had columns of beads separated by a crossbar. Below the bar, each column held 5 beads, each representing a value of 1. Above the bar, 2 beads each represented a value of 5. With a flick of the wrist, an operator could clear the entire device, setting all values to 0 in an instant. The real magic happened in the hands of a skilled suanpan user. Their fingers would fly across the beads, performing addition, subtraction, multiplication, and even division, and the extraction of square roots at speeds that could rival the earliest mechanical calculators of the West. The rhythmic clacking of the beads was the sound of an empire keeping its accounts, calculating taxes, and predicting celestial motions. This presents a fascinating cognitive puzzle. How does moving physical beads enhance mental calculation so dramatically? The abacus externalizes the abstract process of arithmetic. It gives number a physical place and a visual, tactile representation, freeing the mind from the burden of holding intermediate sums in memory. For a true master, the device becomes an extension of their own cognition, their fingers moving almost instinctively as they visualize the problem unfolding on the frame. This deep mental integration is why the abacus was not quickly abandoned. Even as mechanical calculators emerged, the suanpan held its ground for centuries in businesses and government offices across East Asia. Its advantages were profound. It required no power source, was incredibly durable, and most importantly, it fostered a profound numerical literacy in its users. An expert did not just learn to operate the tool, they developed an intuitive, kinetic understanding of the base 10 number system itself. Why did this simple grid of beads remain the primary calculating tool for so long, outliving countless dynasties? The answer lies in its perfect balance of simplicity and power. It was a technology that did not replace the human mind, but instead collaborated with it, enhancing innate abilities in a way that pure automation never could. It was a thinking partner crafted from wood, a timeless puzzle of cognition that turned the human hand into one of history's most enduring computers. That same intricate knowledge of the body's hidden pathways found its ultimate teaching tool not in a book, but in a life-sized bronze figure. In the halls of ancient medical schools, students of acupuncture were tested with a device of elegant precision, a hollow bronze statue of a human body, standing silent and enigmatic. This was no simple reference model, it was an interactive examination simulator. The statue was meticulously cast with every known acupuncture point marked by a tiny, drilled hole. Before the test, officials would fill the hollow statue with water and then carefully seal its entire surface, every meridian point included, with a layer of beeswax. The student's task was deceptively simple, yet required immense skill. To correctly insert a fine bronze needle into the precise point on the meridian corresponding to the ailment named by the examiner. A perfect insertion would pierce the wax seal and release a small, telling trickle of water. A miss meant the needle would simply stick in the wax, a visible mark of failure. This was hands-on learning at its most rigorous, demanding an intimate, memorized map of the body's invisible geography. This entire practice was built upon the complex theory of chi, the vital life force that flows through a network of channels called meridians. Illness was understood as a blockage or imbalance in this flow, and the fine needles were used to unblock and regulate this energy, restoring the body's natural harmony. The most profound puzzle surrounding acupuncture is how this intricate system of points and pathways was ever discovered in the first place. These ancient physicians had no X-rays or dissections to guide them. They developed this entire medical science through millennia of meticulous observation, noting how pressure or stimulation at specific points on the body could alleviate pain or affect the function of distant organs. They mapped the body not as a collection of separate parts, but as an interconnected whole, a flowing energy system. The enduring mystery is why modern science is now beginning to validate these ancient ideas. Contemporary research suggests that stimulating these precise points can trigger the release of natural painkillers like endorphins, increase blood flow, and even influence the nervous system in ways that reduce inflammation and promote healing. How could a system developed thousands of years ago, without any understanding of neurotransmitters or biochemistry, consistently produce effects that we can now measure in a laboratory. It presents a humbling question about the nature of knowledge itself, and whether the most ancient forms of observation might have perceived truths about the human body that our own technology is only just beginning to comprehend. But the manipulation of life force through a needle was a form of healing, a stark contrast to the final, grim innovation that weaponized life's absence. In the brutal calculus of ancient siege warfare, Chinese commanders engineered a tactic of pure horror, catapulting the corpses of plague victims over fortified walls. This was not merely an act of psychological terror, but a calculated, early form of biological warfare. The goal was to sicken the defending population, depleting their numbers and their will to resist by unleashing an invisible, creeping enemy within their own strongholds. The diseased bodies became human projectiles, their fatal contamination a silent, spreading weapon that could breach defenses no battering ram could ever touch. For such a macabre strategy to work, however, it required a delivery system of immense power and range, and this is where the advanced traction trebuchet entered the stage. This was not a simple catapult, but a sophisticated lever-based weapon operated by a team of soldiers pulling in unison on ropes. The synchronized pull would swing a long throwing arm, launching its deadly payload from a great distance, far beyond the reach of arrows from the walls. Alongside these trebuchets stood another giant, the massive siege crossbow. These were not the handheld weapons of infantry, but colossal devices mounted on fortified frames, some requiring a team of men to draw their heavy bows with a winch. They could fire enormous bolts capable of impaling multiple soldiers or even hurling specialized ammunition. It was this terrifying combination of long-range artillery and morbid ingenuity that made the tactic feasible. The ethical puzzle this presents is profound and deeply unsettling. What does it reveal about the human mind to be the first to conceive of weaponizing disease itself? This was a line crossed, a moment where warfare evolved from targeting the body to targeting the very biological integrity of a population. The strategist who first gave the order had to view a human corpse not as a former person, but as a mere vector, a container for a weaponized pathogen. This dark innovation stripped away the last vestiges of chivalry in siege combat, introducing a shadow that would linger for centuries. It was a brutal, desperate, and chillingly effective answer to the ultimate military puzzle: how to conquer a city without ever setting foot inside its gates, by turning its own walls into a prison of pestilence. From the silent terror of biological warfare to the gentle clack of the abacus, these 25 inventions reveal a civilization whose genius defied the limits of their time. They were not merely inventors, but pioneers who saw the world as a series of puzzles waiting to be solved through patient observation and bold experimentation. They listened to the Earth's tremors, mapped the stars with water-powered gears, and spun silk from the dreams of a worm. Each creation, from the mechanical compass to the porcelain cup, sprang from a profound desire to understand the hidden forces of nature and to weave them into the fabric of daily life, whether for survival, spectacle, or conquest. The common thread is a worldview that saw no boundary between science and art, between the spiritual and the mechanical. They manipulated magnetism, harnessed fire and wind, and computed with beads long before these concepts were formalized elsewhere. Their legacy is a humbling reminder that innovation is not a straight line, but a tapestry of brilliant, often isolated, flashes of insight. So we leave you with two questions to ponder. Of all these ancient marvels, which one truly boggles your mind? And just as we look back in wonder at their mechanical chariots and earthquake detectors, what piece of our own modern technology will future historians unearth and puzzle over, marveling at how we ever managed to conceive of such a thing? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest historical mysteries.